Welcome to the LSU Sports Insider, brought to you by the journalists at The Advocate, NOLA.com, and the Times-Picayune. Perryn Keys here, coming to you on a Sunday rather than a Monday. We felt we had to get into the virtual studio as fast as we could with Scott Rabalais, live and direct from his hotel room in Fort Worth, Texas. We are coming to you a day early because we thought it appropriate. Whenever LSU wins a national championship, everybody wants to discuss it, and of course, we were there to cover it. And now we are here to discuss it. LSU just keeps winning. In the space of 13 months, you've seen LSU win a national championship in women's basketball, followed shortly thereafter by LSU's 7th national championship in baseball. No championship in football season, but you did see LSU's 3rd Heisman Trophy winner, and now you see the LSU women follow up their Elite Eight appearance with the LSU women's gymnastics team scoring their first ever national championship in Fort Worth here in 2024. And as I said, Rab was here in Fort Worth to check it all out. And he was there and saw it live. As did the Advocate's photographer Michael Johnson, and of course we brought the best and brightest to you Sunday morning in print. It will be another poster page for sale, I'm sure, at the Advocate.com store. And with that, we will get into it. Rab, how about that? Another little piece of history. Tell us what all it was like, and what you were thinking, and when you realized that LSU had another championship in the bag.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to be here for these moments. I was here for the women's Final Four in Dallas, of course.
That's right.
When they beat Iowa last year to win their first title. I was not at the College World Series when they won last year. I was in Italy. People may remember I wrote a story from Assisi, Italy. We were there on a choir tour with St. Joseph's Academy and Catholic High, and but we watched it in the middle of the night there. So that was fun to write that story. But I was here for this in Fort Worth, and I covered gymnastics for a long time. And I remember back in college, I worked in the sports information office at LSU, and I remember those are the days of just a very, very small attendance for the program, and they built up over the years and had their close calls, and now they finally break through in this the 50th season of the program. It started in 1975, and it's they were deserving. They were the team. People will debate probably this season forever. Was LSU the best team? Was Oklahoma the best team? And of course, but you got to do it. You got to do it in the clutch, and you got to perform it. And LSU certainly did that. And for that reason, LSU is a very deserving national champion.
So we on this previous podcast and Thursday's podcast, Rab, you and I broke it all down. What are LSU's chances of winning the national championship? As we said, we did not have somebody in Fort Worth last year. Yes, LSU had made the Final Four, but it would have taken really all, no offense to that team, but it would have taken all 3 other teams having 4 or 5 falls or something. I mean, there was at no point did we think that it was really plausible that LSU was going to win the national championship. And we thought this team could. And you said you were very clear that you thought that this team was the best LSU gymnastics team that there had ever been, which is quite a mouthful given all the great athletes that have come through in the past 10 or 15 years. But we also said that, listen, some things might have to happen. We thought I was going to be in the final. We thought that Oklahoma would make it through to the final, as would LSU and the other contenders, the other top contenders, and that probably in the final something weird was going to happen. Oklahoma was going to have to take a tumble somewhere, or just put up scores that frankly that would be subpar for an Oklahoma team that scored the all-time national high in the Big 12 championships just a few weeks prior. So, we had a little twist. We had a little twist of fate, which was Oklahoma didn't do that in the final. Oklahoma actually did that in the semifinal. To break down this day a little bit, that was on Thursday. LSU was in session 1. And made it through with Cal. And then Rab, you were in the arena, of course, for the nightcap session 2, which was the more difficult field, I think we would say.
Yes, it was.
With Florida and Utah, which were prime contenders. Alabama, maybe not as much, but certainly those 3, Oklahoma, Florida, Utah, were worthy opponents. Put it to you like that. And I'll share before I ask you what you were doing, because I know what you were doing. I'll share with you a short moment many years ago when the Saints were in the Super Bowl down in Miami, and I was there covering on behalf of the Advocate. And I happened to be looking down, checking a note or checking a stat. It was a stat on, I think, Jonathan Vilma.
I know where this is going.
It was in the late in the game, and I looked down, and then all of a sudden I heard the crowd erupt. Well, come to find out that I had missed the first 3 seconds of the following play, and that play was Tracy Porter stepping in front of Reggie Wayne, picking it off. And next thing I know, I look up, and he made a little cutback, was on his way to the end zone, and how about that? I missed the most memorable play in Saints history. So, Rab, you were there in the arena on Thursday, but you had a somewhat similar experience. Take us through what was going on with Oklahoma while you were dozing off.
Yeah, they were. We had LSU it was in the afternoon session, and then we had a press conference with LSU in California, which was the other team that advanced out of their semifinal. Grabbed a little bite to eat between sessions. They had a little media meal for us, and I was chatting with Scott Carter, a sports writer I know who works for Florida's in-house website. And then it's like, I gotta type in the scores. I didn't have time. We did do a quick story for online, then we come back and do flesh things out for print, and then for online again. And that includes typing up the scores, which take a few minutes. You got to go back and forth, and look at this screen and type in and look at the back and forth. And so I'm doing that, and I'm really concentrating because I got to get these scores in to the desk. And I hear cheering, during as the second session starts. But I'm thinking, and there's 3 red teams out there. There's Oklahoma, Utah, and Alabama. So I see a flash of red, and I see red fans cheering. I figure, Oklahoma's doing their thing. But I finally look up, and they have a 48-325 or whatever they had on beam. And for those who aren't big gymnastics fans, max score you can get is a 50. You take the top 5 scores out of 6, you throw out the lowest score, and then you add the rest of them up. No one ever gets a 50, obviously, but anything over a 49 is good. Anything over a 49.5 is really good. Anything 48 something or below, especially at this level, the national championship level, is not good. And that's what Oklahoma had. And not only it was a bad score for anybody at this level. For Oklahoma, they were undefeated this year. They had to count 2 falls on vault. They had three fell altogether. They threw 1 out. They hadn't counted a fall all year, all throughout the entire season. And Perryn mentioned the score they had the Big 12 game.
I'm sorry, Rab. I apologize for cutting you off. Just to put this into perspective, first and foremost, Alabama is a juggernaut and has been a juggernaut, reigning national champion. They don't make mistakes. That's what they're known for, is really, frankly, not making
Oklahoma.
Mistakes. They're going to do Oklahoma. They're going to do everything excellently, and they're not going to be the way that they run up all these great scores is that they don't make a mistake, and therefore they don't get deducted any points or very few points, and that's why they wind up with these high scores. This was This was Oklahoma's lowest score on vault in 16 years. 16 years. So that tells you all you need to know.
And to add a little context to that, I was talking to D-D Breaux, LSU's former coach, who we're going to talk about later. It said 16 years ago they were doing vaults on the pommel horse. They were taking they're taking the handles off the pommel horse that the men use and going that. Now they have a specially designed vault table that's kind of got this this curve to it. And she said, and of course the degree of difficulty. So it's a very different event from that. So that's a very long time in gymnastics. And like I said, they hadn't counted a fall all year. LSU's counted a couple of falls this year and had to go on. And they did lose a couple of meets during the year too, early on, and then to Missouri and at Florida. So this was stunning. I mean, the whole arena was stunned because Oklahoma was practically out of it from that first event, and then they really were out of it after they had another fall on beam. It didn't even get to 197, which is just the minimum score for hey, you did good,
right.
But didn't make it.
Rab is for all of you who are tuning in and listening. Rab is very well skilled and experienced in figuring out in live time just exactly what's going on in terms of scoring, and are they going to have enough, and are they still in contention? And I frankly still am not. I don't have that feel. But we saw what happened back at the desk, and so I texted Rab and I said, "Did you see this? Is Oklahoma in trouble?" And he said, "You bet you Boomer Sooner they're in trouble." And sure enough, they were. But listen, that was, going back to sort of the original point, that was what LSU needed. It's not to say that LSU might not have had the meat of their life, the score of their life in the championship had Oklahoma made it. But you got the feeling that it was very much like, for example, when you're in the NCAA tournament and, a juggernaut number 1 seed gets upset and you were the number 2 or the number 3 seed in your region. And now all of a sudden it looks like the door is wide open. It's there suddenly, it's there for the taking. Even if you were a tight number 2 or number 3 seed, very close to the number 1 seed in that tournament. Well, now you feel like the door is really, the door has been open. The road is wide open for you to be able to go and claim it, to go break down the door and claim it for yourself. And so I think that's what everybody was feeling, certainly within the LSU program. And certainly if you were an LSU fan walking out of that arena or tuning off the TV that Thursday night. And that set up, of course, a chance for LSU to do their thing in Saturday's meet. They, of course, finished up on beam. Everybody, I think, will remember, who's got a stake in an emotional stake in LSU gymnastics. I think everybody will remember where they were when Aleah Finnegan finished off on beam and clinched it really for LSU. But Rab, just take us through, the 14 field and just sort of take us through that day, the day of the championships.
Yeah, so it's so Oklahoma's out. It's Utah and Florida advancing out of the second semifinals. It's LSU, California, Utah, and Florida. California in the final for the first time. LSU in their 10th final, but still trying to win that first national championship. Been a runner-up 4 times. Utah and Florida, both programs had won. Only 7 programs since 1982 going into Saturday had won national championships. So it's kind of a very small club. And so LSU is trying to make history. LSU suddenly is thrust into the role of the favorite, as compared to trying to be the team that's going to knock off Oklahoma with an upset. And let me go back quickly. Oklahoma in their regional semifinal had a 198.050 in the semifinal, and then a 198.4 in the regional final. So LSU's 198.225, which was their winning score yesterday. They would have had a shot.
They'd have been right there.
They would have been right there with Oklahoma because the scoring's a little tougher. And the pressure is obviously much higher when you get to the nationals. But anyway, that's the 4 teams, and it was a very similar spot for LSU gymnastics that it was for the women's basketball team here in Dallas last year. That was of course Iowa knocking off undefeated South Carolina in the semifinal, while LSU beat Virginia.
Yeah, that's
State.
right.
And then LSU's the favorite over Iowa, and they won as the favorite. So it's different from being the team you're expecting to be having to pull an upset to. We're the ones that are expected to win now. Not that Florida and Cal and Utah weren't good; they were all top 5 teams from the top 5 seeds, and so they're all very highly respected teams. But LSU was the favorite. They were the SEC meet champions and all that stuff. So started off, a little not bad, but this nothing super great on floor. No, floor was good. They just had a 49.6125, then a 49.4 on vault, and a 49.450 on uneven bars, and that put them just a fraction behind Utah going into the final rotation. And LSU's finishing on beam, and Utah's finishing on vault. Well, beam is the most unpredictable event. It's the most things can go wrong. It's you're 4 feet off the ground on a 4-inch wide beam, and it's you got to hit all the routines, and you got to stick the dismount. It's very difficult, but LSU really nailed it.
Can I pause you right there, Rab? Because listen, Connor McLean's as good as there is on beam, and certainly they had the athletes to do it. But sort of interesting and maybe kind of sort of fitting that LSU, it's worth noting that LSU started off this season with a couple of sub 49 scores on beam. They really struggled out of the gate. And now to have it come down to beam, which is already the most difficult, and for them to show out as they did on beam, I thought that was something else. It was a sight to behold.
It was, and you're right. There were little grumblings about beam earlier this year. Yeah, 40. The first two meets of the year at home against Ohio State, and then the 4-team meet in Utah against Oklahoma and Utah and UCLA. They had a 48-7 on beam, and then a 48-7-50 on beam. And so people are like, "What's wrong with their beam? What's happening there?" And then later against Alabama, they had a 48-4-5-0. On beam, even though they had a really good team score overall in that meet. So they had the times, but they really started to take it up a notch on beam in the postseason. And then this was the best performance ever. This was a 49-7-6-2-5 on beam, which is the best score on beam by anyone in the NCAA final ever. Broke the record that UCLA set 6 years ago, 49-7-50. So really, really tremendous score, and they knocked it out of the park. And so LSU's on beam, and Utah's on vault, and vault goes quicker than beam. So you're going to know what LSU needs to do by the time they get to the end, because vault is just you run and you flip and you land. Beam, you're doing a routine and you're doing it's just a longer process, and so you're going to know what to do. So Utah's first two vault athletes don't do a good job. They don't hit the mark. Let me look up their scores real quick. Their first two vaulters got like a 9.2875 and a 9.675, so they have to count the 9.675, which is not a good score. Meanwhile, Sierra Ballard, career high, 9.95 to lead off LSU on beam.
What a time!
I was reminded of Johnny Miller's call in the U.S. Open. Of course, I'm reminded of a golf thing when Corey Pavin hit the great shot onto the green in the U.S. Open, and he said it's the shot of his life. And it was the shot of her life. It was the routine of her life. It was like Jasmine Carson last year in the national championship game, hitting all those 3-pointers. Really settled LSU down. But then the next gymnast, Savannah Shaneher, a 6th-year gymnast, had transferred this year from Florida for her 1 year at LSU, and the last routine of her life. And she just steps funny as something that never happens to her. And she's hanging onto the beam. People didn't see it. If you go back and watch the replay, she's refusing to fall, but it's a major deduction, right? So she gets a 9.3875. Double check. 9.3875. So LSU's got to throw that out. They can't have another fall, right? And then they just nail it from then on. Connor McLean gets a 9.9625, the best score of the day by anyone in any event. There weren't any tens yesterday.
Just Connor McLean on beam. That's not a surprise because she's so good on beam. But nonetheless, again, you got to do it.
You got to do it. Yeah, as Jay Clark said, Connor's beam routine is world renowned, as he put it. She's done a lot of international competition. Then the last three gymnasts, Kai Johnson, Haleigh Bryant, and Aleah Finnegan, not all 9.95s. They just knocked it out of the park. But as it turns out, you and I talked before before we started our recording. When they got to Aleah Finnegan, she just needed to stay up. They just needed to erase Shaneher's score. If she gets a 9.6 or better, LSU wins. Still wins the meet. But it's so that's like a major. That's staying on the beam, but you had a major balance check. You almost fell off, but you catch yourself, which happens a lot on beam. So she didn't have to do anything as great as she did, but when she nailed it, she knew, and they knew. It was such a moment I'll never forget. She just burst into tears immediately and hugged Ashley Knatt, the LSU great, who's now an assistant coach and their beam coach. And they knew it. They knew it right in the minute that they'd done it. And ended up winning by about 0.4, which is like. My brother texted me, how big a win is that? I said, in football terms, it's like winning like 41-27 probably. It ended up being a good win, but it was something that was in doubt until the very last minute. She had to do it, but she did it and then some. And it was a very ended up being a very fitting end for LSU on beam. And it was, and Finnegan had her ups and downs on beam, like the team did on beam this year. But they kept her in that anchor spot, and she just nailed it. She's got like a triple combination, and when she hit that, you knew they had one hand on the trophy, and then when she landed, it was all over.
That's the entire beam rotation. The one flub notwithstanding, Sierra Ballard knocked it out of the park, as you would expect. Connor McLean knocked it out of the park. Aleah Finnegan, you didn't, maybe not everybody knew, and I certainly didn't know for sure exactly what they needed, but we knew that it needed to be at the very least good. It needed to not be a disaster, if not very good. It all likened, I likened it all to all of these athletes. This was the equivalent to, whether you want the ball in your hand, with the final shot, whether you want the ball in your hand with 2 minutes to go in the fourth quarter down, you're either going to take it and do it and be a clutch performer, a clutch athlete or not. And boy, did they, didn't they do it?
Haleigh Bryant was so good. She won the all-around title. She had 10s on all 4 events this year, which is the season slam, and which is, only a few gymnasts have ever done that. And so there was a lot of speculation of why they didn't make her the anchor instead of Finnegan, especially when Finnegan had some of her ups and downs on beam. But she's had and is having a great year, as it turns out. She won the NCAA floor title on Thursday night. That's when the individual titles are decided. And she anchors them in this ultimate moment for the program. And she's going on to the Olympics to represent the Philippines this summer in Paris. Her mom is from the Philippines, so she's able to represent them. And so her year is turning out pretty great. When at times it's like, what's wrong with Aleah Finnegan? Why? Because she can do tremendous gymnastics. She's tremendously talented. Just kind of outshined at times by Haleigh Bryant and Connor McLean as well. But when it counted Thursday night and again Saturday, she really came through for LSU. And now the sky's the limit for her going into the Olympics and then her senior season next year for LSU.
So the celebration begins, and I think it was only appropriate. This clip has made the rounds on social media, as you would expect for it to. But the celebration begins. Confetti falls. They get their trophy. They get their Advocate Championship posters, which they proudly hold up. But before the celebration begins, Jay Clark, who's now, of course, in charge by himself of the LSU gymnastics program, he made it a point we're not going to get this party started before D-D Breaux gets up on the podium with us. D-D Breaux, the pride of Donaldsonville, Louisiana, started the program, did a lot with a little for years and years and years and years. And now, of course, the LSU gymnastics program, it already was a juggernaut. It was just missing the national championship. It's the only thing that was really missing from the program, because now, of course, as we know, that the athletes are international superstars and world renowned, and they have one of the best facilities, one of the best gymnastics facilities in all the world.
Probably the best.
But none of this could have been done without D-D, who fought her way through and almost literally fought her way through some very, very lean years at LSU. Rab, I was just hoping that you could reflect on somebody who you know very well, D-D Breaux.
Yeah, I was Jay Clark in the post-game press conference as well, post-meet press conference. He gave a lot of credit to D-D for bringing him on. Jay was a longtime assistant at Georgia when they were really on top of the gymnastics world. He became the head coach when Suzanne Yokelin retired. He was fired there because kind of like Smoke Laval following Skip Bertman at LSU in baseball. Did okay, but didn't do great. And so he was fired, and they've still been searching to get that back at Georgia. Just fired their coach again. But she brought Jay in, and he said she brought me in not as a subordinate, but as a partner, and to trying to elevate the program. They'd been good at LSU gymnastics, been very good at times, but not great. And then they started going to the what was then the Super Six, and now it's the Final Four, the four on the floor, whatever they call it. And this is LSU's 10th appearance in that. They'd never broken through, and so they started breaking through, and then they won some SEC championships, and were runner-up 4 times between 2014 and 2019 in the finals. And she retired after the 2020 season. And this was she and Jay were co-head coaches, and he became the coach. But to go back to what you said about D-D Breaux, D-D is one of those people like Kim Mulkey, like Sue Gunter in women's basketball, a pioneer of the sport. She was in the sport before it was a sport, And I mean,
really one of those great Title IX pioneers. She really was.
By that I mean she was coaching before NCAA. The NCAA is only sanctioned women's athletics since 1982. That's kind of hard to believe looking back there. So before that, it was the AIAW, and that was a whole separate organization for women's sports. And and that's why some of the records, like Lynette Woodard's scoring record at Kansas, that Caitlin Clark passed her on the way to the scoring record. That's not an NCAA record. Her points, her scoring is not even recognized by the NCAA. Kim Mulkey at La Tech won the last AIAW national title in 1981 and the first NCAA title in 1982. And so the AIAW title doesn't count to the NCAA. So there's a lot of examples of that. And D-D Breaux was the coach going back to the late 70s when it was that. And they competed in the PMAC. At times they competed in the field house because they drew such little fans. And the program, struggled to survive. She tells this story of they just put all the gymnastic equipment in a corner of the field house, and the athletic director at the time, I think it was Paul Dietzel, called her and the men's gymnastics coach Armando Vega over to his office and said, "You guys fight it out and see who's going to come out on top." And she said he looks at Armando Vega and goes, "My money's on her." and so I've
never heard that story.
Yeah, it was like, yeah, that was a good bet by Paul Dietzel. And then the men's program does get cut eventually, along with wrestling under Bob Broadhead in the early 80s. And she said one day she got a call from Broadhead. She was called over to the athletic director's office. Their offices at the time were in the PMAC. A lot of the Olympic coaches' offices were in the PMAC. And she said, "He's got to tell me he's going to cut the program. I'm not going over there. I'm not going to talk to him." And so she didn't go. And I don't know if that made a difference or not. But the program would possibly not exist at all. And certainly would not exist in the form that it does without the foundation that D-D Breaux laid. Building it up slowly over time and bringing in somebody like Jay Clark and building the gymnastics practice facility, which if you've never seen, next time you go to a sporting event at LSU, just go peek in the window. You're looking at the best facility in the world. Yeah, it's a palace. I saw a quick aside. I saw a documentary on Simone Biles one time, and she was training at the U.S. Olympic facility in Colorado Springs. And I'm like, that looks nice. It's not LSU's facility. It really isn't. And I'm talking about the U.S. women's Olympic team, which is the gold standard, right? And it's not quite as good. She did that. She raised the money for it. She fought to get it done. And one of those fighters. And people talk about standing on the shoulders of giants to achieve great things. That's where the LSU women's gymnastics program stands today. And I'm so glad that she was able to be there and to see it. And I saw her before the meet. And she said, "I didn't sleep last night. It was just like normal." She said, I couldn't sleep. And she was all keyed up and excited. And it's her victory too. And I'm sure she'll get I'm sure they'll give her a championship ring and everything. And well deserved.
If she doesn't get a ring, nobody else should. Frankly,
that's right.
Almost including the athletes themselves. Right. I say that exaggerating a little bit, but not a lot. That facility, not for nothing, but and I know you know this, Rab, it built an empty spot where one day an NCAA championship trophy was supposed to go, and that spot, of course, had been empty, and
Top
it's
shelf.
not going to be anymore.
Nope.
So, matter of fact, it'll probably be there as we're speaking to you late Sunday morning. It'll probably be there within a couple of hours as LSU is set for a championship rally of sorts at 12:30 p.m. Sunday over there on campus. So, long story short, they did it. They did it. It was a long journey. They got it done. I think we would all agree that probably Haleigh Bryant, you mentioned her gym slam, her season slam. So very few athletes, gymnasts have done that before on the college level.
And she has to go down, Perryn, if I may, with the national championship, winning the NCAA all-around title, the SEC all-around title, the AAI award. She might win the Honda award. You really have to say now she's LSU's best gymnast ever, and there's been a lot of great. But
you can debate talent, but you cannot debate that she is by far the most accomplished LSU gymnast who has ever come through there, for sure. But certainly, probably just the best outright. And you and I were talking before, and this is a topic that we've discussed, more than one occasion here in the last 2 or 3 years. But Rabbi, why don't we just take a moment here and reflect on a couple of things? And the first thing that I want to reflect on is the number of athletes that have come through LSU. And, for those of you who are maybe, 35 and younger, You say, well, what's the big deal? LSU's got, world-class athletes coming through that campus all day long. And yes, they do. But this was not always the case. I'm just going to read off. This is not probably a full list. It's kind of a partial list of some of the better athletes that have come through LSU in the past 5 years. Haleigh Bryant, as we've discussed. Ingrid Lindblad, the women's golfer who is the number 1 amateur in the world. Joe Burrow won the Heisman. It was the first Heisman in 40
years.
How many? 40 years. Yeah, that's right. 40 years. First Heisman winner in 40 years, to say nothing of all the other, elite level NFL players who were on that 2019 championship team. Paul Skeens, number 1 overall pick. Dylan Cruz, Golden Spikes winner. Jaden Daniels, another Heisman Trophy winner. Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors, a couple of first. They're about to, here in less than a week, there'll be a couple of first-round receivers who will join 2 other previous first-round receivers, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase. Sha'Carri Richardson, who she's the world champion, the reigning world champion in the women's 100 meters. She's going to go for gold, obviously, in Paris this summer. And she says she's going to try to run for gold in the 200. Whether she does that or not, we'll see. But nonetheless, you're talking about what's clearly one of the world's greatest athletes, one of the world's greatest track athletes at the moment. Sean Burrell, who won the national championship at the 200 hurdles. Aaliyah Hobbs, who's another elite level sprinter, who's certainly going to be more likely to be in Paris than not likely to be in Paris for the women's track team. Kristen Nuth and Taryn Cloth, who are the 2 beach volleyball players who are right now ranked. Rab, aren't they the number 1 beach volleyball players in the world?
Last time I checked, they were number 2 in the world, but they have already accumulated enough points to qualify for the Olympics to represent.
They'll be in Paris at the sand volleyball courts right underneath the Eiffel Tower. Angel Reese, international celebrity to go with All-American status and national championship status, now a top 10 pick in the WNBA draft. Flau'jae Johnson, who Rab, I'm not going to speak for you, but I'll speak for myself. When the time comes, I'm going to guess that she's going to wind up being a top 10 pick because she's only getting better and better. Maggie McNeil, who is a 200-meter swimmer for the women's swimming team, who
won the 100 butterfly in Tokyo.
Yeah, excuse me, 100 butterfly. I'm sorry.
You're going to try to become the first woman to win those in back-to-back Olympics.
I should have known that because that's actually my wife's. That was my wife's event. But great Canadian 100 butterfly, reigning gold medal winner, and she will try to be the only athlete in Olympic history to repeat as a gold medalist in the 100 fly. That's just.
Wait! You leave one out.
This is a small sampling. Yeah, go ahead.
You're leaving one out. Mondo Duplantis broke his
world record. Oh, that guy
broke his world record during the meet yesterday.
That's right.
Right before it, he broke his own world record in I think he was competing in China on the Diamond League.
Mondo's in his early 20s, and he's going to go. He's already the greatest pole vaulter of all time. This does not happen. This does not happen on a campus very often. This does not. To have this many athletes from so many different sports who are not just All-Americans, but they're elite on the world level. It really is. Stop and think about that. It's amazing. It really is.
It truly is amazing, and it's become so. There've been so many of them. We're kind of taking them for granted. But compare LSU to Iowa and Caitlin Clark. Caitlin Clark, we could say she's as big as anybody right now in the world of sports, right? Set the scoring record. They made it all the way to the final. She's the number 1 draft pick. All this stuff. Name me another great athlete at Iowa right now, or the last couple of years.
The punter.
I
got you.
The punter.
The punter.
They're an All-American punter. Okay, you did got me.
I don't know if they had an All-American punter, but I mean, we know that they can punt the hell out of the ball. That's all they do.
That's right. But she's way at the top. But there's no one else to share that spotlight with her. But at LSU, you're like I'm like, okay, yeah. I'm reminding everyone, include Haleigh Bryant when you're taking off Joe Burrow and Jaden Daniels and Angel Reese and Mondo Duplantis, Sha'Carri Richardson, and all these people. Throw Haleigh Bryant in there. It gets to be a crowded table. If you brought all these people together for dinner. They'd have to get the little room in the back, they're not going to all go sit at the bar, so it's really remarkable. And it's like, I'll say I went to LSU. I'm not allowed to be a fan. I don't own a stitch of clothing that says LSU on it, but I am impressed by these athletes. These people. When we see them compete, Perryn, we see the tip of the iceberg. The hundreds and thousands of hours they put in, behind the scenes to prepare and to train. And these all the routines you saw the gymnastics team do yesterday, they've been doing the same thing all season. They start in the fall and they set their routines. They find the music to go with floor or beam competitions, and they perform the same thing over and over again. That's why they said we're not changing anything for the final. We're not doing anything extra, right? Because you can't change at this point. It's all ingrained. Because I've seen it many times, the music will go out and they'll keep going on floor or beam, Yeah. And so it's that ingrained, and we only see the tip of the iceberg. And these young people have they give up a lot. A lot of them are, especially in gymnastics, a lot of them are homeschooled. A lot of them, don't even have the normal school experience of going to prom and going to dances and things like that. They give it up for their sport. Or the swimmers, they're like Maggie McNeil are going to swim at 6 o'clock in the morning. And then they go to school and they come back and swim in the afternoon.
And by the way, probably haven't had a hamburger in 3 years.
That's right.
And I'm almost not joking. You know.
And we left out Aleah Dunn, who is a great gymnast. She's a past All-American at LSU, and certainly has a lot of notoriety. In fact, I saw one thing online that said Aleah Dunn and LSU won the national championship. She did not compete yesterday, but she's part of the team and she has competed this year and has a chance and can come back next year if she wants to. But
not for nothing, but
Livy, in a way.
I'm sorry, not for nothing, but Livy, Paul Skeens. I hope this doesn't cross a line, but Paul Skeens does not have to give Livy a ring, and Livy does not have to give Paul Skeens a ring. LSU's first couple, they went out and earned their own rings, which that's the definition of a power couple right there. I'd say
that's something that Taylor and Travis can't say, right?
That's right.
Both have a championship ring.
Yeah. Taylor's going to be okay, though, I think.
Yeah,
I'll make that bet. So listen, this was the LSU's 52nd national championship, all sports. And this was something else that I wanted to, and I talked about this. This is something else that I thought was worth reflecting on. Speaking of things that, you can sort of get used to or spoiled by, if you're a student at LSU right now, or if you're a young person at LSU or has got some sort of connection to LSU, it's hard to tell people this now, but we had to go back and do the math ourselves. We had to go back and do the math and the homework ourselves. LSU won the national championship in football in 1958. LSU did not win another national championship until women's indoor track won in 1987. So you're talking about almost 30 years, almost a 30-year gap for a national championship of any kind in any sport in that campus. And now, they've got programs all over the place who are falling out of bed winning national championships. Again, this is their third major national championship in the past 13 months to go along with women's basketball and with baseball. So, it's if you are from Louisiana and you have any sort of tie to the LSU, the university, the community, the athletic programs, this is about, you have to say it's about as good as it gets.
Yeah, it does. And I mentioned Bob Broadhead earlier, and I think this commitment to having an all-around excellent athletic program started with him in the early 1980s. He said,
interesting.
He said, let's be good. They brought him in. He was working for the Miami Dolphins, and they brought him in to be the athletic director to replace Paul Dietzel. And he said, let's be good at everything. Now he got a couple of programs like wrestling and men's gymnastics, but he
was a slightly controversial figure to begin
with. Slightly controversial, but like the line in one of the Star Trek movies, only Nixon could go to China, and only Bob Broadhead could have the vision to say, let's not just be good in football, let's be good in men's basketball and women's basketball and track and field and swimming and all these sports. And in the last few years, obviously, a national championship in football. They won in the last 10 years. They won in men's golf. They've won a couple of track titles. I think the women's track team is number one right now. Beach volleyball has been a national contender. Softball has been a national contender, a top 10 team right now. And now, just like you said, 3 national titles in 3 different sports in the last 13 months. Something that not many programs can say. And this is all from a school in a state. And I can say this because I'm from Louisiana, where we rank last or near last in a lot of things. Just imagine if we were half as good as a state as LSU has been in athletics in the last few years, we'd be doing pretty great. But
I actually, yeah, if I can get semi serious for a moment, I did have that thought. I've had that thought several times over the past, really the last, I don't know, 16, 18 months. Just, it makes you, why don't we think we could be as good at everything else as we are at this? We certainly believe we've got the people and the will and the want to be as good as anybody in the nation, anybody in the world at certain things. And one day, Rab, maybe hopefully before you and I are dead, we can see that Louisiana sort of make good on all that potential in other areas too. But I'm sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, we're great at food, and we're great at festivals and things like that. But we can be a lot better. And look, and it's not just LSU. I mean, you can point to UL's had a great softball tradition over the years, and there's been other programs in the state. Yeah, obviously Louisiana Tech in their day in women's basketball was the gold standard and everything. There are shining examples out there if people want to follow. And is sports as important as dealing with illiteracy or childhood obesity or environmental issues? No, but there are examples of what we can do as a state, what people in the state can do if they put their minds to it. And at LSU, they've built something that is one of the best things in Louisiana, and you have to give them all credit and give Scott Woodward, the latest athletic director, the credit. He went out there and hired Brian Kelly, and he went out there and hired Kim Mulkey. He went out there and hired Jay Johnson. I know baseball's struggling at the moment, but I think he's a very good coach. Matt McMahon, you got to give him some time. And he's the one who said he picked Jay Clark to say, okay, lead this gymnastics program, and you can see the results of it today. And if I may look ahead to next year for a little bit, people always wondering what's next.
Please do. Gymnastics. Yep.
Don't know what her plans are. Haleigh Bryant can come back. I hear conflicting reports about this. Now maybe winning a national championship makes her think I'm going out on top, but she can come back next year. Olivia Dunn can come back. Alana Shenikova, who was out with an injury all year long, who's been an all-arounder in the past, she's expected to come back for 2025. Connor McLean, Aleah Finnegan will definitely be back next year. Amari Drayton, the freshman, and they're bringing in another really great freshman class. Two names that you will know are Zoe Miller and Kalia Lincoln, who have a shot to go to the Olympic trials for gymnastics in June, and Connor McLean's got a shot to go there as well. But they've got another, and those are just a couple of headliners on another great recruiting class for LSU. I was reminded of this last night. Jay Clark told me privately, if I'm going to share it, because they won now. He told me in the offseason, if I don't win a national title in the next few years, they should run me off. He did. And
well, he's not going to get run off, sounds like.
No, that's right. Because not just this year, but actually, kind of betting on this year looked like a really good team, and it turned out to be their best, obviously. But next year's team, especially if you can get Haleigh Bryant to come back for one more year, has the potential to be even better. And that's pretty remarkable to say. But the future's in good hands in terms of talent for LSU gymnastics. Future's in very good hands.
It's pretty impressive. We suspected that this may be coming, but we obviously weren't sure. Nobody's going to be sure that something like this is going to happen until it happens. And LSU had to go out and do it. And LSU, by golly, they did it. Rabbit, is there anything as we sort of close out? Is there anything else that you think we'd be remiss in not touching, other than just quite an interesting weekend, and really has been quite an interesting month, starting with the LSU women in the Elite Eight. It's another wild year at LSU, and it's been another mostly very, very successful year on the LSU campus. What with baseball and softball yet to come, we'll see how they get to finish it out. But, any other thoughts?
Track and field, beach volleyball, as you mentioned. There's a few seasons left to go, but obviously this one seems like is something that's going to reach the climax. When you have April, late March, early and into April is this climactic month for basketball and now gymnastics, and I don't know. I would just say women's athletics in general has come such a long way at LSU and nationally, of course. But when you sit back and think about it, how much of LSU's notoriety and success is due to its female athletes, it's pretty remarkable. They've come a long way from having all their equipment tossed in a corner of the field house and having to perform in the field house or with a curtain drawn on one side of the arena because they couldn't draw enough fans, or having to give away basketball tickets in front of the Winn-Dixie or something like that. It's a pretty golden age for LSU athletics. And I know a lot of people, it's all football and obviously that's what drives the train. And we'll see what they can do this year in football in a season where the college football playoff is expanding to 12, and that's going to be the new standard of did you have a good season or did you not? And we'll be talking plenty about that as it comes up. But if you're an LSU fan, you can't feel anything but proud and should. And these young ladies deserve their respect because they are some tough athletes. They perform,
as we've discussed. Yes.
Yeah. Under with something's hurting everybody by the time you get to this point in the season, if you get this far. And but they're feeling pretty good right now. And I can't be a fan, but I'm happy for them because they're a good group and they deserve everyone's respect and admiration and for a job well done.
The celebration party will be at 12:30 p.m. Sunday, as we're recording this mid-morning on Sunday. Typically, of course, we are here on Mondays and Thursdays on the LSU Sports Insider. But again, as we said, we didn't think we could wait on this one. Everybody wanted to sort of hear and relive the gymnastics team national championship, and that's certainly understandable. But we are typically here on Monday and Thursday on the LSU Sports Insider. You can find us on all our social channels, but specifically the YouTube channel LSU Tigers on NOLA.com. If you search for LSU Tigers on NOLA.com on YouTube, you should be able to find that channel, subscribe, and that way you'll never miss an episode. Even if we go live on Sunday and throw you a curveball, you should be able to find it. And if you don't find it live, you can always find it after the fact. We are also on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever other finer podcasts are found. So please check us out there. Search for LSU Sports Insider on Apple or Spotify. And give us a 5-star review if you like, because that will help us find more LSU fans and help more LSU fans find us. And of course, listen, support your local journalist. Rab is in Fort Worth for a reason. It's because the Advocate has always been the number one destination for all LSU sports coverage. And certainly if you're listening and tuning in, you know that already. So please subscribe, support your local journalists. We cover LSU like no other. Go to theadvocate.com/subscribe. And if you are subscribed to our LSU newsletter, you would have gotten the flash in your inbox yesterday afternoon that we sent out at about 5 o'clock. If you're running around on a Saturday and you weren't in front of a TV and you weren't able to pay attention to Gymnastics Live, you would have gotten a notification on your phone via email through our newsletter that LSU was a national champion yet again. So please subscribe to the LSU newsletter. To do that, you go to theadvocate.com/LSU newsletter. Rab, it's been a pleasure. You are road weary, I'm certain, and with the Zurich Classic yet to go this week, but that's a little bit of an easier haul back and forth from Baton Rouge to Avondale. So I'm sure you'll be happy to get off the road, and get a good night's sleep.
Getting on the road first, but then getting off. Yeah.
Yes, and so I'll be waiting patiently on the 2-taco combo from Taco Cabana, torn chicken, salsa verde, and if you could bring home those nachos and figure out a way to keep them fresh, that'd be fantastic. So for Scott Rabalais, this has been for Scott Rabalais, I'm Perryn Keys. This has been the LSU Sports Insider.